Good morning, gang. Happy Saturday morning. Well, there sure is a hell of a lot to unpack from the last few days, trying to figure out what direction we are going in. And if you're like me, you're as confused as ever. Where's the country going? Where's the world going? What can we expect going forward? What should we plan to be ready for? Because it seems like every day the script changes. Tariffs are on, tariffs are off. The war is on, the war is off. The economy's good, the economy's bad. Pick something, okay? And you don't know what's going on. I want to know what they know that they're not telling us. I mean, you guys know as well as I do that there's a whole bunch of stuff going on in Washington that we have no clue what to expect. Now, I mean, granted, there's a whole bunch of stuff we really shouldn't know because, as I've said many times before, if we knew everything that was going on in the country, we'd all be a bunch of basket cases. But the stuff that affects us directly, we need to know. And so you start looking around to see who opens their mouth and what are they saying that's got a hint of truth in it, but they're hedging their bet in how they say it. I mean, you look at what's going on. I mean, what we all prepare for. All right, let's take the first one. War, right? Okay, well, let's see. Israel and Hamas just agreed to a 60-day ceasefire. That's good. Maybe we don't have to send any more money or any more equipment, military-wise, to Israel for a while. Maybe we won't be sending more troops over there. And before anybody says we don't have any troops over there, tell that to the Navy. Okay. Boots on the ground, as far as I'm concerned, includes boots on ships. We have Russia agreeing to come to the table for U.S. negotiated peace talks in Turkey, and Ukraine is the one that's causing problems. Yet for some stupid reason, we keep backing Ukraine. Lindsey Graham, our illustrious senator from South Carolina, is in Ukraine at the moment, cozying up with Zelensky. What more do you need? How much more money can we launder through you? What military equipment can we send you that you can sell on the black market and give us a kickback for? Not that I have any proof that he said that, but I'd be willing to bet my house that those are things Lindsey Graham is talking about. We have reports out of the French media that France has troops working in Ukraine under the leadership of Kyiv. Okay? We have Zelensky coming out this week and saying that the U.S. needs to send troops to Ukraine because Europe wouldn't do it unless the U.S. is involved. Of course, Europe can't wipe their ass unless the U.S. is involved. Not a single one of them could defend their own country for more than 20 minutes if it wasn't for U.S. dollars, U.S. troops, and U.S. equipment. Okay. Again, we go through, what is it? England has something like 20 working tanks, and Germany doesn't have enough bullets to last a day to defend Germany. The other part we get is because of all the bullshit handouts that we've given to Zelensky and the rest of Europe, we don't have the military strength to defend our interests in, say, Taiwan. I mean, you have the Navy coming out and saying we have enough missiles to last about 7 days if a war ever broke out in the South China Sea. That's a problem, okay? We need to take care of this. Well, then you get to the economy, and that's the other one. And I've talked about the economy a few times this week. You have all the talk on, gee, we're going to go to a Bitcoin strategic reserve. Is there any gold in Fort Knox? Lots of talk about we're going to do something to devalue the U.S. currency. This is what I talked about yesterday. Okay, one of you guys sent me a video that I agreed with the guy on about devaluing the dollar, turning on the money printing machines, and reestablishing the dollar backed by hard assets, meaning gold and Bitcoin. This is the plan. But I want you to understand what devaluing the dollar is. All right? It means your dollar's worth a lot less. Like Mrs. P said, she goes, what do you think will happen? I said, I have no idea. She goes, well, in Russia, what they did was just chop a zero off the end of everything. Okay? Let's say the U.S. did the same thing. I'll just give you an idea here. That would mean a $10 bill is now a $1 bill, right? Or a $100 bill is now a $10 bill. What did the Treasury say they're going to do this week? Stop making pennies. Makes sense, okay? Cost 3 cents to make a penny. We'll probably hear very quickly that we're going to stop making nickels too. Why? Because it costs 6 cents to make a nickel. So those are money-losing things. But if we chopped off a zero, that would mean a dime is now a penny. What do we need pennies and nickels for anyway? Just some speculation on something like that. Okay. So what is the thing that we should all be concerned about? Now, this is where you get into reading between the lines and listening to what they're saying, because they'll tell you flat out what's going on without telling you what's going on. There is a conference going on, okay? It's the Reagan National Economic Forum that is going on in California. And this is where you get some of the bigwigs in the world of finance talking, okay? So you'll have Jerome Powell or Scott Bessent or CEOs, et cetera, et cetera. Well, one of them's a name you guys all know who was speaking yesterday, and that's Jamie Dimon, who is the CEO of JP Morgan Chase. You guys know back in the day when I was at Smith Barney, which was owned by Citibank at the time, Jamie Dimon was the CEO over there. I've got firsthand experience that Jamie Dimon is a piece of shit when it comes to taking care of the people, all right? He's all for making him money. He's all for making the company money. He's just not real good about taking care of, his employees or his customers. Okay, firsthand experience there. Been there. I was one of the employees, okay? Hi, congratulations. We just had our best year ever. Let us tell you about the pay cuts you'll be taking. Been there. Okay. That was how things worked. Well, Jamie Dimon was giving a speech at the National Economic Forum there yesterday, and his quote in the middle of everything, in the middle of an interview, was very interesting. Okay, this is what he said about the U.S., okay? But I want you to think about this on a personal level. This is his quote. We should be stockpiling guns, bullets, tanks, planes, drones, rare earths. Okay? China is a potential adversary. They're doing a lot of things well, but they have a lot of problems. But what I really worry about is us. Can we get our own act together, our own values, our own capability, our own management? Okay, so let's unpack this. What he was talking about is where Jamie Dimon's always been a fractional reserve banking supporter. Obviously, he's the CEO of a bank, and like I told you, he's not concerned about the people. He's concerned about his own pocketbook. Okay. He doesn't like going to hard assets. He doesn't like going to gold. He doesn't like going to Bitcoin. He doesn't like backing the currency with something other than paper or promises. Yay. Okay. He doesn't want to do anything like that. And then he mentions stockpiling guns, bullets, tanks, planes, drones. Okay, that's building up our military. Rare earths. Okay. Again, to make more of those missiles. Is he a warmonger? That's what you'd think. Okay. Because while all the money is being embezzled or laundered through Ukraine for military equipment, where do you think it goes? Oh, it goes to the banks. It's not like the aforementioned Lindsey Graham has suitcases full of cash in his house. Granted, Bob Menendez had bars of gold. Bob Menendez is in prison. Okay. So they got to put it somewhere. It's got to be laundered. It's got to be clean. Banks are good for doing that sometimes, especially if, you got it all washed nice and neat. Now put it in our bank and we'll be good. So then we can use that and we can loan it out to other people so I can make money. Got it. Okay. It's this big vicious circle. They're all at the top, How did George Carlin put it? It's a big party. You ain't invited. That's what we are, okay? We're the pawns. They're the ones running the show. But Dimon gets a little more interesting in this when he's talking about the stockpiling guns, bullets, et cetera, et cetera. Well, like I said, it looks like Israel-Hamas is at least on the back burner. It looks like Russia-Ukraine hopefully is on the back burner. China hasn't started anything. So right now, we're not in any worry. So why should we be stockpiling guns? Because if China's not an adversary, and he really worries about us, can we get our own act together? Now, who's he talking about? Is he talking about the banking system? Is he talking about the government? Is he talking about the U.S. population that everybody's tried to drive a wedge into, right? Everybody seems to hate everybody else. The two political parties are further apart than they've ever been in the history of the country, okay? He talks about our own values, okay? Again, diametrically opposite, Men and women's sports. Some people believe it's perfectly fine. Other people believe men are men and women are women and there is no changing it, okay? The ones that believe the facts, the truth, the science, that sort of stuff. Can we get our own capability together? Can we get our own management together? Well, by management, I have to think that he's talking about government. Who's managing the country? If I read between the lines of what Jamie Dimon's saying in this, he's not talking to the American government. He's talking to the American people. That we should be stockpiling guns, bullets, tanks, planes, drones, rare earths, gold and silver. We should be stockpiling that because, as the Constitution says, the reason the Second Amendment is there is to protect us against a tyrannical government. Well, let's go to this last sentence. Can we get our own act together? Congress sure as hell can't. We get our own values together. Congress doesn't have any values. No morals, no nothing. 95% of the people there are as corrupt gets. They have no values. Our own capabilities. Again, I'm going to go into Congress. Please tell me what world experience, what life experience most of them have. They've never worked a job a day in their life. They've never signed their name on the back of the check, ever. I mean, come on, AOC was a bartender. Joe Biden, the only job he ever had was as a lifeguard. These are the people running our country, okay? Our capabilities? Oh, cool, I'll take a Mai Tai as I sit by the pool, because those are the types of qualities that we have of the people running the country, which is the last part, our own management. Something's coming. And if you read between the lines and listen to what these people are saying, I don't necessarily know if it's Jamie Dimon playing the side of the government or playing the side of the people. I know Jamie Dimon's playing the side of Jamie Dimon, that's for sure. He'll do whatever it takes to keep the status quo going, to keep the banking industry going, to keep the money, the $600 million a year salary that he gets or whatever, flowing into his pocket. No problem. But what's he think? Are we on the verge of civil war? If they devalue the currency, yeah, as you hear a lot, the greatest wealth transfer in the history of the world, okay? Bitcoin is what they're talking about, where the people that have it are going to get rich and the people that don't have it are going to get poor. Saying. Gold be the same thing. If we back the dollar with gold and Bitcoin, okay. But if they devalue the currency and people don't hold any of it, all of a sudden, they just became instantly poor. What do you think they're gonna do? I'll give you this. This is, again, talking about Bitcoin. There are approximately 1 million people in the world that own one Bitcoin or more. That includes entities, okay? Corporations, BlackRock, MicroStrategy. 1 million people out of 8 billion in the world that own one. One Bitcoin right now is about 100 grand. So that means, again, 799 or 7.999 billion people own less. What do you think they're going to do if we devalue the currency? You have a worldwide civil war. And it goes back again to what I've talked about over and over and over. These people in power, their goal is feudalism. The king and the peasants, right? You know, like I said before, do you want to live in Zuckerberg? That's what they're striving for. The only way you beat them is to position yourself to not be on the bottom of the pile. And then none of us are going to be on the top of the pile. So we need to be ready to fight for what they're trying to destroy, which is the middle class, which is where most of us are. But they want to get rid of us because we have too much. We're not controllable enough. And then that comes to a point where which side do those in the middle take? Do they join the oligarchs or do they join the peasants? I have a belief that pretty much all of us in the middle class will join the peasants, because the peasants haven't been the ones that have screwed us over and over and over again. Pinball out.